Now that we have already seen in the earlier video how we can develop, how we can set up Visual Studio environment on our machine, in this particular session I am going to demonstrate the first .NET application, for which let's start with, go to Start, Programs, go to Visual Studio 2012 Express Edition, Visual Studio Express for desktop, open this software, and we have to start always with going to File and a new project. And here you can see these are the different templates which are available. Visual Studio Windows Edition, Desktop Edition supports Visual Basic, C# and C++ by default. We want to develop our applications in C#. So select C#. We have got two types. We can do Windows or simple unit testing alone is supported here. But these are the different types of projects which we can develop using Windows version. Windows Forms application, WPF application, class console based application, class library. Basically 4 types. I would like to start with creating a console based application. And here we have to give the project name. I'm going to explain to you very shortly what is project, what is solution, what is the relationship between them and so on. So here we are supposed to provide the project name. Let me also clarify one thing. For those who have got Visual Studio Professional Edition, here you will have an additional option through which you can actually change the .NET Framework version. Express Edition does not give you that facility. Visual Studio Express Edition, you can only develop applications for .NET Framework 4.5. Whereas if you have Visual Studio Professional Edition, you can develop using Visual Studio Professional 2012, you can develop using Framework 1.0, you can develop from Framework 2.0, 3.0, 3.5, 4.0 or 4.5. Any of the versions you can select from the drop down which would be available in Visual Studio Professional Edition. If you have, you can try. Alternatively, right now we are anyhow working with Express Edition, so we give you a project name. Let's say Hello World Demo App, and then this is the place where we have to provide the location of the folder. So I'm going to save all my project in C:\D:\Windows. I'm going to create one folder called as Windows Samples, and in that samples I would like to prepare all my projects. So here you can keep projects in case you want, or you can remove this, your choice. And then here we have the option of create directory for solution. I'll explain what is all this. Just select these options for the time being. So I'm now unchecking this. I don't want a directory for solution. So I repeat, I started file, new project, selected here C# Windows console application and gave some project name. Click on OK. Doing so creates a project. Now if you already have this environment set up, fine. Alternatively, go to View, Solution Explorer and come here. This is the Solution Explorer. This is the solution and this is the project. And under the project we have a file by name program.cs. So what is solution? What is project? A project is always a part of some solution. So always on top in the hierarchy is a solution. Solution is supposed to have a file with an extension SLN. And then under solution we actually work with multiple projects. And the project file will be .csproj if you are working with C#, and by any chance if you are working with Visual Basic it will be vbproj. One solution can have multiple projects. Important, a solution need not have projects all of same language. I can have multiple languages used in different projects. That means under a given solution I can have a project in C# and another project can be in VB.NET and one more project can be in VC++. But under a given project we are supposed to have various other files, like we are supposed to have source code, and that is supposed to be compulsory with the extension .cs file if it is C# and .vb file if it is Visual Basic. Like what? Like that in the project only we'll have other files, like it can be a resource file. Resource files, whether it is C# or VB.NET, will have the extension resx. We can have XML files, we can have config files, we can have various TXT files, we can have HTML files, various other types of files can be combined together. So what is a project? A project is a collection of resources which together will make an application when built. What we are actually going to do is, after creating a project, we are going to build a project. Now what is build? Build basically is of two steps. One is all the source code in the project will be compiled individually, and then all these compiled source code is going to be linked to each other. So basically build is an action which is a combination of compiling and linking. So once all the code is individually compiled in each and every source code file, and then all the code is linked to each other, what we generally get is a compiled output in the form of exe file, which is based on the project name. So suppose, let us say my project name is, imagine in this case I have taken hello world demo app, and if you remember I have unchecked separate directory for solution. So the solution file name and the project file name will be same, except the extension. Extension of course will be different. So here the extension will be .csproj. I can delete this. Now when I build the project, we are going to get a exe file whose name will be hello world demo app.exe. That's how the name will be for the exe file. Now what is built in the project? Remember, it's always the source code files which are built in the project. Of course, right now we do not understand resource files, but yes, these two files are the one which are actually compiled, and the binary form of that will be available in the exe. So what ultimately we distribute or deploy on the target machine where we want to run the .NET application, what we have developed on this development environment, is this particular application. This exe alone we need to give to the client to execute on his machine. We do not have to give all these project files and everything. The compiled version is sufficient. The source code is not required. Maybe yes, in case we are using XML files, we need to include. In case we are using config files, we need to include. These of course is a separate story which we'll need to discuss later. But the build version will have the binary form of source code and the resource file. Hence we do not have to include along with the exe while deploying on the target machine. So I summarize again once more. Whenever we create a new project in a Visual Studio environment, it always creates a solution on top. Under a solution we can have one or more project. Under a project we can have one or more source code files, one or more resource file, and various other required resources, other different types of files. Now when we are done with our project coding, we are supposed to build the project. Build is an action where we need to compile and link. Compile what? Source code files are individually compiled, and then after compiling all the individual files, the code between them will be linked to generate a single exe file, and that exe file will have the file name based upon the project name. Now this is the project I have created in Studio. Of course you can go to tools. See, this font is very small, so in case you want to increase the font, go to tools, you will find options, and here you have fonts and colors. You can select the font of appropriate your choice, and you can set the size also. Like I am changing the size to, let us say, something like 14 font. Click on OK. So this is the code which is auto generated by Studio when I created a project, and the file name is program.cs, and in program.cs there is a class by name program. You double click here in Solution Explorer, it will directly take you to this class. Right now you will have lot of things here, but not much is relevant to us. Most of it we can actually delete and discuss more in detail later. Like right now these using statements we are not going to make use of. So just select them and delete, it's okay. Right now namespace doesn't have much significance, though I would not recommend you to delete, but right now because it does not have much significance, I can take this step of deleting it. And same is the case with this flower. and then we have to indent it. I want this to be properly indented. The shortcut which we can use for indenting is press Ctrl plus K key plus D. Ctrl K D is the shortcut through which all this code got indented properly. So I just undo first, Ctrl Z, and then I press Ctrl K D. It got indented. Now here is main. Now what is main? We have to understand this. If you know C, in C also we write main, and the importance of main is it is an entry point of an application. Whenever our application starts, it is actually started by the CLR. Common language runtime is the one which is going to launch our application. So common language runtime has to find an entry point to enter into the application. So the entry point for entering into the application is main. It is the main exactly where the program begins, starts executing the code in the sequence. Like for example, I am writing now console.writeLine and put here something like hello world semicolon. It is going to enter main, execute this line, and now because the code all completes here, it will exit main. So program starts with main, enters main, executes the instructions which are given in main in the sequence specified, and when main ends, the program ends. That's the lifetime. So main, I can say, is not only the entry point of the application, main is also the exit point of the application. Main, which is in program class here. Unlike in C, you don't see main inside a class. You see main, it is outside the class. But here in .NET, everything is inside a class only. You cannot write any method outside the class directly. Every method must be written inside a class because it's an object-oriented language. So here in C# main is an entry point where the program enters, executes in sequence and comes out. Now we have to run this and see the output. What are the options we have? To execute this, you can go to debug menu here. First, let us build it. So there is a menu build. We have the option of building a solution. But let me clarify. When you build a solution, it is ultimately going to build all the projects within it. As such, there is nothing like building a solution. It's a project only which has to be built. So you click on build solution. It builds the project. See here, build started. The project has been generated and the output is generated in so and so folder. Let me copy this in Notepad for clarity. So the compiled output is so and so location. Let's understand this. D: is the place, D: Windows samples is the place which I created my working folder. Under that, hello world demo app is the name of the application. In that there is a bin folder created. In that bin debug is created, and that is where the exe file is present. Let's go to now this folder D: Windows app, hello world. Under hello world, you see there is a project name. You see we have got a solution file. Now solution file is in the same folder as the project because at the time of creating the project, I have unchecked the option of create separate directory for solution. Hence both project file and solution file are in the same folder, and of course the program.cs source code file also is in the same folder. This is some configuration file which again we will discuss later. Right now obj folder is there. This is the place where individual files, when they are compiled, will be generated. I told you individual files are compiled and then linked to each other. So individual files which are compiled are actually placed by Studio in this folder. Of course it is not of much use to us. We can ignore this folder. We can anytime delete this. But go to bin. Under bin we'll find debug, and under debug this is the main file which is of importance. This is the compiled output of our project, hello world demo app. Now double click on this. See, actually the command line window is opening and closing. We are hardly able to read the output. Just keep double clicking. So we want to actually execute this from the command prompt. So what I'll do is select this folder, go to command prompt, We have already copied in the copied onto the clipboard. So go to edit and paste here. So we have to give CD. Sorry, first I should go to D colon and then change to that folder. Now run the exe. Hello world demo app.exe. You can just press tab, the name will automatically come, and enter. Hello world. This is the output. This is a console based application. That's why the output is appearing on console window. It is not a GUI application. So I go back to Studio now. Can't I execute from Studio itself? Yes, actually we can execute from Studio itself. To execute from Studio, we have here under debug menu two options: start debugging and the other is start without debugging. How to use this too? Just press here start debugging and you see the window opens and goes away. We are not able to see the output again. So what to do? You have the option of using start without debugging. Click on this. The output will stay for us to read, and only when you press a key this window will close. So yes, debug, start debugging, the window will not stay. By any chance if you want the window to stay, for just right here console.readline, it will wait for you to press enter before the window will close now. Now use debug, start debugging. The window is staying because it is wanting us to press now enter. So yes, start debugging, start without debugging are the two options. Ideally, I would prefer you using this shortcut. You can just press F5 on your keyboard for start debugging. Generally, we use start debugging option only when we want to execute the code line by line. Right now, we do not have a lot of code, so we don't need to use that option. Alternatively, you can simply press Ctrl plus F5. That's the shortcut. And similar to build, you can use F7 or Ctrl Alt F7 is the shortcut for building it. You can also use, actually not provided in Express Edition, but the shortcut is working. In Professional Edition, you can see that shortcut. We can build a project and the shortcut is Ctrl plus Shift plus B. Ctrl Shift B on your keyboard. You can press to build the project. Alternatively, you can simply use the shortcut F7 to build the solution or to rebuild. Now what is rebuild? See, not maybe in this case, but in real time, the projects will generally comprise of something like 20 files, 30 files, 100 files of source code. Now every time you build, the compiler is going to build individual files and that would take time. So what Studio does is it will build the program and it will have to rebuild that file only if that file will get modified. So every time we use the option build, like first time, let's say when I use the option build, all the source code files in the project will be compiled. But next time, only when the source code is modified and again you use build, it will recompile. See now, I just modified the file, I got this 2. I don't modify and I simply use build, I just get successful. Why? Nothing is there to modify, nothing is there to build, nothing will be regenerated, directly it got it. But suppose sometimes what happens is we want Studio to forget all the compiled version and do a complete rebuild of all the files irrespective of whether they are modified or not. In such kind of situation, you'll have to go for the option rebuild solution. So all the files in the project will be rebuilt, and this is good once in a while so that all the latest files will be always in sync with each other. And sometimes actually speaking, Studio has problem and it doesn't link the code properly and we use the option rebuild. So I repeat again once again, build by default in routine is good, so that in case our project has multiple files, only those files which are modified after the last build will be rebuild. But if you are using rebuild, all the files irrespective of whether they were modified or not modified will be rebuilt to generate a single exe. So you can only build, or you can simply say start without debugging, where it will automatically build and execute. It will do 2 steps automatically. So this is how we develop our first program and execute it. Now before I actually close this first program, there are few points which I want to take your attention to. One, main yum is uppercase and C# is case sensitive programming language. So if you put yum lowercase, it is not going to build. It will give us an error. Did not find a static method main with suitable entry point, and that is because this main is not matching. So M for an entry point method main must be uppercase. Second, there should be a keyword here, static. See, if you are writing something in C language, it is as simple as this. In C you would simply write like this, enough. You can just put void and directly without class also you can write. You don't even need to put actually these args. C program is as simple as this. In C we don't use console.writeLine, instead we use printf. Let's say hello world. So the equivalent of this in C we'll have to write all this. We'll have to write a class. We'll have to write any name of the class is fine. What is the importance of it? We will discuss as we move forward. Name of the method must be main, uppercase. In C it will be lowercase. But in C# it is uppercase. Return type we have mentioned is void. String array parameter. Next video I am going to actually explain you what is the importance of this. And then this is the equivalent of printf to print on the console window. We don't need this. So this is the C equivalent of this C# code doing the same thing. Now what is this using system? Actually, system is the namespace. We are supposed to fully qualify this class name. In such case we should write system.console.writeLine, and then this is not required. Now press Ctrl plus F5, our program will execute. But if you do not write this, now this class is not recognized. Why? Because we are not mentioning any namespace here. So to resolve that ambiguity, here we have to provide system, and system is the base namespace, and for everything we need system. So I always recommend you to keep this use system always on top and then write rest of the code, so that every time any class you want to use from the system namespace, you do not have to qualify that by the namespace name. You can directly use the class name like we have done in this case. So let's go back to the notes once again and review everything. Project structure. A solution is a collection of projects. One solution can have many projects, and every project added to the solution can be of same language or different languages. Solution file has the extension .sln. A project is a collection of files which includes source code, resource files, configuration files, etc. A project has the extension .csproj. A project when built, two-step process, generates a exe or DLL. Of course, when we select class library template, if you remember, I have shown you one of the templates available in the new project dialog was class library. That time we will get DLL as output. Otherwise we are always going to get, for Windows application, console application, exe as the output. And this exe is what we call it as portable executable. Then we followed this steps: file, new project, selected C# on the left hand side, console application on the right hand side, gave the project name and saved it in some location. This is the code which was generated by Studio, and I said main is the entry point as well as the exit point of the application. After we have this, we just wrote this extra line and then we build the project. This is the shortcut for building the project. Now to run the project, I showed you two options: start debugging and start without debugging. Start debugging we'll have to generally use when we use breakpoints. Otherwise you'll have to write console.readline for the window to stay. And then I showed you the drive in which the output is generated. We can go to command prompt, go to this folder and execute the exe in case we want to. And I already mentioned this. In Visual Studio Professional, we have the facility of specifying the version when we create a new project. So with this, we are now completed with our first C#.NET application. Thank you.